We are back. Starcraft is back. It's good to finally be here casting with you, Artosis. Happy New Year to all of you. We have had a long break, and this is the beginning of the return of Starcraft here in 2020.
Yes, finally. We have something going on here in Seoul, South Korea. And lucky for us, it is quite a match indeed.
Yes.
You are tuning into the Esports night.
Yes.
And that's abbreviated as T.E.N or T.E.N. And we are having kind of a flashback match. Ex-SKT players against ex-KT players from the old Pro League days. So this is going to be an amazing series tonight.
It's really cool to get everybody back here together again. We have a very large variance as far as play and skill. These are really players. Some in the modern StarCraft era, very dominant, performing very well. Others, they've taken a different course as far as their paths.
Absolutely.
Some of them, whether that be commentating or playing other games.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fun to see how everybody plays. We should have some great modern StarCraft, as well as maybe some old school styles coming out here, and we can talk about that more when those games actually come.
Yeah, we've actually got 3 of the current best players in the world that will be playing here on these rosters. I'm not exactly sure of the level of everyone that is playing here tonight. We have one of the best StarCraft 2 players in the world playing, who is in relatively good shape in Brood War as far as I know.
Sue?
Yeah, we have a commentator playing who used to be an amazing player.
Yes, that's the one for us right there.
Yeah,
the commentators.
Go Rush, that'll be fun. Reach is playing tonight. There is a big variety.
Yeah, top tier Protoss after coaching League for some time as well. He's back
right.
too, so that's very cool.
He's been in pretty good shape lately. It's a lot of strong players though, and I mean definitely every player that's going to be up there on stage is better than the people watching here and us for the most part. So it's going to be a lot of fun no matter what.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. We're going to have a large variety of different matchups. Which is great, too. We're going to get, I think, the full StarCraft palette met here with all the different play styles and different play here. And it's good to come back strong here in 2020 for StarCraft. This is the oldest esport. It's still one of the biggest esports, especially as far as viewers. StarCraft is not going anywhere.
No?
It's staying
only
strong.
To the future.
Only to the future and on and on. It's still very active out here, especially on the Korean servers, and we have a lot of new young players that are training and improving, and that's very exciting to see some new young blood injected into the scene. Already, I think we're almost entirely filled up here in the studio. We might have filled up the moment we opened the doors.
It's really packed in here, and it's been like very lively. People are very excited getting autographs of a lot of these older legends and stuff, and
it was hard for us to even get inside the building. We went to grab a coffee, and it was
a huge line out the door.
Stretching out, so this is going to be a lot of fun, especially some of these older players, especially some of them that became commentators and coaches. These are the guys that really built the StarCraft universe as far as competitive esports go, that we now see here flourishing today. It's cool to have these guys back. I am very curious to see, especially players like Reach, for instance, how exactly he's going to look when he plays. I know that even though some of these players you don't see in competitive tournaments like the ASL or the KSL, they may still be very active on ladder. They may still be very strong and able to bring modern styles as well.
Well, you bring up a good player to show that. Reach has recently been, like, not this season, but last season, I believe, he hit like 2,400 MMR.
Yeah.
I think the overall MMR adjusted slightly lower this season for everyone, but he was strong. He played in KSL quals. He played pretty well. Obviously, he didn't end up making it, and that would be huge news for such an old player. But yeah, that's going to be fun to watch him. I don't know what type of shape Go Rush is in. I'm not entirely sure about what shape Sue is in or Hoja is in.
Yeah,
but obviously,
Sue's another one I'm really not sure about. But.
Yeah. But obviously, Bisu, Action, Flash are all in tip-top form. They're all in great shape.
Yes. I'm so happy to be back casting. By the way, we had an incredibly long break, even for us. I know there's always an off-season every year for StarCraft. But man, we have just been hanging out and playing StarCraft online. We both got to compete in some StarCraft tournaments here in Korea. But I am very happy to be doing more than just playing, to be coming back and actually casting now.
Yeah. It's definitely about time.
How long has it been? Almost 3 months? Two and a half?
Dude, yeah.
3?
Well,
is it 3? Wait, hold on.
The finals of KSL were in
2.5.
We're in November, the end of November, right?
Oh, I almost forgot about that. I was thinking most of our stuff ended around BlizzCon.
Oh yeah, no, it's been very sparse. Haven't had that much to do. I've just been streaming, playing some Starcraft, waiting for everything to return. And this is the first glimmer.
Many.
This is like the groundhog is coming out of its hole, and we have to see if it sees its shadow. Because hopefully everything else will get announced pretty soon.
In this case, the groundhog logs on to Battle.net. We know it's going to be a good year.
Yes. Or does he run away and hide once again? Does he get ladder anxiety?
It depends, yeah. I can't do this, man.
I can't have the other groundhogs know how bad I truly am at this game.
I've been lying about my rank for the other groundhogs for too long. I've got to keep this lie going.
Yeah.
So we're going to be bringing the players out on stage. I believe we're going to have an interview of sorts with each of the players and get some thoughts on how they're doing. This is a revival of a very old rivalry here. I know we have people from different ages, although StarCraft, I should say different ages watching. I know StarCraft 1 is generally considered to be a game that is spectated more by people from the older crowd in esports, but there are younger people, especially those coming from StarCraft 2, who are curious about where this all came from, and frankly, where all of esports really came from. It did really, truly start here in Seoul. KT and SKT were just two incredibly powerful teams.
I like it where esports came from. They've all heard the legend about how Tasteless and StarCraft really loved each other, and when two things really love each other, occasionally a new thing is made from that.
Yeah, and how does that happen? Well, you'll have to wait a couple of years. You're too young for that. But these two teams, though, a huge rivalry. Some would say this was the golden era of StarCraft when these two teams are really competing. I would actually disagree with that and say really where we are now is the golden era as things continue forward. But it's going to be really exciting. I think we're going to bring those players out now. And we're going to introduce our SK Telecom players, SKT1 coming out here. Now, again, this is at the time when these guys were on a team. All these guys are independent contractors or they're doing other jobs now.
Yeah.
But it's good to see this family reunion here of SKT1.
And look, you see, of course, their head coach coming out, Go Rush, and then we have Bisu and Best and Sue there. So Bisu and Best, both very top form right now. Go Rush is commentator, and Sue is one of the best StarCraft 2 players in the world and has been for a long time.
So we'll have a few questions for them and see how they're feeling as we go into this. So good to see everybody back here again. And it's kind of crazy to see who is still competing, whether it's StarCraft 2 or StarCraft 1, and of course who became a coach or a caster, showing what kind of future you can have in esports here.
And here's KT. We have, of course, the KT head coach, followed by Reach, Flash, Action, and Hoja. And again, we have two players that are in tip-top form in Flash and Action. Reach, like you said, he had done some various jobs doing some coaching in League of Legends and things like that. Hoja, I'm not sure what he's been up to, though.
Yeah, I'm not entirely clear on that, but I look forward to seeing how Hoja is going to perform. Of course, if you've been following ASL or KSL, you're going to be very familiar with Flash and Action. I think we're going to be going to
a little bit of translation.
We'll see if we can get this translated for you guys.
포스가 이제 물씬 나면서 뭔가 생생해지셨고 뭔가 포스가 달라진 박용훈 감독님과 좀 이야기를 나누겠습니다. 잘 지내셨죠?
네, 안녕하세요. 네.
All right, well, they're saying hi to the head coach of SK here. Very nice guy. I got to know him way back in the day.
Yeah. I remember meeting him very briefly with you.
Very sweet man.
Yes.
자세한 이야기는
Very good guy.
제 유튜브 채널에서 말씀드릴게요.
He's talking about his
YouTube channel.
아니 어떤
사실은 제가 이제 모바일 이식을 해서 한층 젊어졌다는 소리를 많이 듣고 있습니다.
네, 유튜브 채널 꼭 한번 찾아보시기 바라고요.
Oh, I guess he got a hair transplant, so he's looking younger. Good for him. Him and me both. Going with the hair plugs. Just live forever.
그거 말고도 사실은 이번에는 정말 이기고 싶다라는 의지가 굉장히 좀 높다라는 얘기를 들었거든요. 어떻습니까? 그때 뭐 사실은 보신 분도 계시겠습니다만 그 놓치신 분들을 위해서 짧게 한번 얘기해 주신다면 사실 그때는 일단 뭐 엔트리 뭐 이런 관련된 내용이라든지 오고 가는 내용들이 좀 많았었잖아요.
사실 그때 당시에 저희가 정규 시즌은 압도적으로 1위를 달리고 먼저 올라가서 상당히 유리한 고지에 있었는데 그 경기가 상하이 결승이었어요.
네.
하지만 그때 상하이 결승
So in the past, we've been first place, dominant in previous seasons, but in the final series,
어린이대공원에서 결승전을 했는데 그 시간을 번 거죠, KT가. 그러니까 준비 기간이 짧았는데 준비 기간을 많이 주는 바람에 저희는 약간 한꺼풀 꺾인 상태에서 그때 경기를 했었고,
네.
그때 당시 KT는 한참 이제 준비 기간을 가지고 이제 우승할 수 있다 그런 패턴을 가지고 경기를 했기 때문에 제가
they definitely have had a big and long rivalry. Sorry guys, we're getting some of it translated. Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
going down memory lane, talking about the past.
Yeah.
뭐 그런 얘기예요?
A lot of people kind of have the fond memories of this rivalry. Of course, there was a lot of very strong pro league teams. These two were always up near the top. They're both telecom companies out here. They're the biggest two by far, which means that they had bigger budgets than just about everyone else. These two teams, and if I recall correctly, CJ Entis had the biggest budgets.
Yeah, that was third.
And
I think fourth was
SK had
Samsung or
first
something?
place as far as budget goes. But yeah, SK was always kind of like a New York Yankees type situation where they bought out amazing players. Like, for instance, Bisu was originally on NBC but was bought out by them.
Right. Bigger budget means you can get a bigger salary for those players. You can buy them out.
And when StarCraft 2 came out and stuff, they grabbed a lot of the great players. Parting went over, and some others as well. But yeah, the history of SK is so deep and long. For instance, Boxer was kind of the founder. Like, he was the biggest name back in the day. Orion picked him up, and eventually that team, which he made basically off of his own salary and picking his own talent, morphed into SK over time. He picked up I Love Uve, who became another T.E.N Bonjour, and mentored him somewhat. I Love Uve ended up mentoring Fantasy, who would have probably been the next T.E.N Bonjour if StarCraft 2 hadn't kind of interrupted the flow of StarCraft 1.
Right. That was an odd time when the two games came out. There was a big push to put one on. And then StarCraft 1 did take a hit briefly for that. But, this game it's got such a history with it. It really is, frankly, part of Korean culture. A lot of Koreans refer to StarCraft 1 as a folk game. And there was really no end of StarCraft truly in sight. People love this game out here. They want to see it go on forever. And, the meta, the strategies, and the maps continue to change and develop as we learn more about this game and unpack more of it.
So true.
아까 선글라스라고 하셨는데 저도 이번에
there was a little bit of trash talk there talking about the SKT coach had a weak mentality wearing sunglasses on stage. Well, I'll tell you, those are cool sunglasses.
Yeah.
So you could see he took them off.
저도 오늘 되게 의미 있는
If I were him, I would leave them on.
KT, quite a fabled team as well. Let's not forget, right? They've had so many great players over the years. Of course, Yellow stands out as the rival of Boxer for many, many years. They got Nalra was one of their big names back in the day. Obviously, Reach, who's here right now. And then, of course, Flash eventually.
Yes, the acquisition of Flash was a big boost to this team. Flash is, to this day, regarded as the greatest pro gamer of all time.
Yes.
And I know some of you who come from other games might have a little tinge of pain in your heart when you hear that, but if you just look up what he did, there's nobody that's come close to that.
What he continues to do.
Yeah, what he continues to do. Even compared to players like Faker, as good as he is, he needs more time to get the kind of dominance, or to even match that you have Flash.
Well,
he continues to play.
Probably needs different DNA as well. As Flash just seems to have stuff no one else does, including the work ethic. But yeah, KT always a very strong team, but I think mostly in SK's shadow over the years.
Sure.
SK just always was kind of the strongest team.
I would say the lineup was just a little bit stronger overall.
어윤수 선수가 또 나와 있는데 이야기를 또 안 들어볼 수 없겠죠. 유일하게 지금 어윤수 선수가 유니폼을 입고 나온 것 같아요. 기존에 있었던 유니폼이거든요. 어떤 이유에서 유니폼을 또 꺼내들게 된 건가요?
So it looks like only Sue showed up with the official uniform today, underneath the sweatshirt we see.
이런 거 좀 이것저것 좀 챙겨왔는데 다들 없더라고요.
He says, well, I'm the least important person on the team here today.
아쉬운 거죠.
아니, 지금 굉장히 좀 수비적인
So I had to
어떤 그
bring
자세를
something.
취하고 계시는데 어윤 선수가 사실은 스타 1 때는 커리어가 뚜렷하진 않았습니다만 스타도
By the way,
들어와서
that
그 사실 콩라인이었잖아요.
So he's talking about how his career wasn't as strong as the Starcraft 2 career, of course. For those of you who know him from Starcraft 2, he's one of the most accomplished Starks ever. So they're talking about the expectations for how he's going to play today, how he's going to perform now that he's back here in Starcraft 1. And they're bringing up, that was him at IM Katowice in 2019.
yeah.
His victory there, which was huge. Sue's actually very famous for getting second place in most StarCraft 2 tournaments, in a lot of StarCraft 2 tournaments.
Yeah. He made 6 GSL finals, far above and beyond everyone except for Innovation,
And
who, by the way, was another SK player.
Right. Almost forgot about that.
Yeah.
힘들었었는데 또 그 당시와 지금의 차이점이 있다면 뭐가 있을까요?
솔직히 말하면 제가 여기 1레벨이 아닌데 이게 형들의 좀 이해관계 때문에.
By the way, the guy interviewing Kanata, another SK player.
Incredibly good player.
Yeah, he was a practice Bonjour, never really did well in his own matches, but was known as one of the best Terrans in the world in practice for many, many years.
And he became a very successcul commentator. You may have seen him in StarCraft 1 and 2 major matches.
그 콩라인의 아픔을 오늘 꼭 씻어내기를 바라겠습니다.
So he's mentioning here that he's not really at the same level as the other players are on the stage, but he's very honored to be here.
우리 고강민 선수가 있는데 어떻습니까? 이제 10년 후로 돌아와서 10년 전의 얘기들을 하고 있잖아요. 듣고 있는 지금
Now over here to Hoja.
저도 지금 좀 현역에서 좀 물러나서 지금 밖에서
Who, by the way, will be facing off against Sue here.
갑자기 안으로 들어왔는데 너무 감회가 새롭고 이렇게
Let's also mention the Marine on the right there was also on KT, and now he's a very successful commentator. Commentates just about everything out here.
And he was really one of the very, very first.
Yeah, he switched over early, but he was a very strong StarCraft 1 player when he played.
He was like the big rival to Slayer's Boxer. There were two.
He was like the
top-tier
second
Terrans.
best Terran, basically.
Yeah, and in fact, I remember specifically this really great game he had where they were massing battle cruisers against each other, and then it was actually Slayer's Boxer who went for the ghost lockdowns, and one of the first big lockdown plays we ever saw.
Yeah. Looks like Hoja, by the way, is a gym trainer now.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's
Okay,
sick.
that makes sense why we hadn't heard much from him.
I was wondering why he was so handsome.
Yeah. I actually think there's a lot of crossover there between heavy exercise and the discipline with that, and then training hard for StarCraft.
Sure.
You know, you can't just magically be good at StarCraft. You have to really work at it. Same with getting in good shape, you know?
도프로도 장난
So
아니었죠?
talking to Best over
Going over to
here.
the other ripped player on the other side here is Best, who's also very physically fit. Oh,
Anyone whose ID ends with Est is an amazingly fit, amazingly good Protoss.
Wow.
That includes both Zest, who, by the way, was on KT, and Best, who is on SKT.
it's those Ests.
Yeah.
그래서 우리 고강민 선수
I forgot some of these old photos of the pros and these modeling poses.
KT 쪽에 제가
Can we just put that back up here on the?
Could
we
we
put that on
just?
the monitors
I know
behind us?
Nada was on We Made, but can we just get his photo up here,
That's
please?
what we need. We need more half-naked pro photos up here.
좀 많이 덩치가 많이 늘었는데 그 운동 충분히 잘할 수 있을 것 같아요.
네, 알겠습니다. 많은
All
도움
right,
주시길
Flash
바라고.
covering his
그럼
body up
마지막으로
here.
오늘 직접 경기를 하셔야 되잖아요. 좀 어떤 좀 각오와 또 어떤 뭐 기대를 가지고 좀 경기를 하실 건지 우리 팬분들에게 한 말씀 부탁드릴게요.
제가 이 자리에 온 이유가 좀 불려진 이유가 좀 SK랑 결승전이나 플레이오프 할 때 제가 조금 활약을 조금 했었던 것 같은데 지금은 아무도 저한테
He's saying he's
기대를 안 하실 거예요. 근데 좀 오늘 좀 히든 카드로
he's down here today. He's hoping to show some good performance against
알겠습니다. 여러분들
SKT.
박수 부탁드립니다.
He says, I know there's high expectations on me, but I'm just hoping to do my best.
네, 이번에 김성대 선수와 또 인터뷰를 한번 나눠볼 텐데.
So I'm talking to Action,
방금 얼굴에 대한
originally from Eastro, but after he sort of evolved, did find himself on KT eventually.
Action is an incredibly successful player in the modern era of StarCraft. He's one of the best Zergs out there. I think strategically he is absolutely brilliant and really knows how to cut down any opponent in any race.
His macro is really, really strong. He's very good in long games.
Yes.
Very good with Defiler type tech.
He's also known for training really, really hard. Like he puts in more hours than almost anybody else, and you can see that that paid off. Not everybody succeeds and becomes, the player they want to be right away. Sometimes you have these, I think, really beautiful stories of people who really pour themselves into something, and years later they finally come out on top.
He was known for being a top 2 to top 3 practice hours back in the old days of Kespa, which is really saying something because most people were practicing at least 12 hours a day at that point, which was just crazy and actually probably too much, but it shows the dedication.
Yeah, it seemed a little bit too much. Probably better to have some time off to let the brain rewire, get some exercise and sleep. But
he was closer to 16 hours a day. It was crazy.
Excuse me, a lot of this also reflected the Korean mentality of just working really, really hard, and he really embodies that. And they're talking about that in that interview now. He's saying he's confident coming on the stage now, and he's hoping to perform very well.
이대로 당할 수는 없죠. 또 저희가
So we're going over to Best now.
최대한 연습량도 많고 또 대회에서 꾸준한 모습을 보여주고 있는 도재욱 선수 한번 만나보도록 하겠습니다.
Now Best has actually had some very unique Protoss play recently, and I think it was you that said this, Artosis, but I couldn't agree more. Everybody enjoys watching Best play. He's a really fun player to follow. He does a lot of cool stuff with Dark Archons. He seems to have his own approach to a lot of the matchups, even PvP, for instance, which a lot of times can seem kind of like a cemented meta. He will come out with some very different builds and different approaches. It's going to be exciting to see him play here today. And right now, he is easily one of the best Protosses that is active here.
Yeah, and he was active during the era of the 6 Dragons, when there were 6 Protoss that were head and shoulder above all of the Protoss. And he was realistically ranked 4th amongst the 6 Protosses after Bisu, Stork, and Jongbi. But very, very strong player. He's never actually won a championship, but is highly respected. He's gotten 2nd place before. July Zerg, of course, knocked him out of that finals, if I recall correctly. And yeah, he's just always been a very strong macro Protoss and has stayed with Starcraft 1, where some people quit, some people went to Starcraft 2, whatever. He really didn't spend much time doing much else and has remained one of the very best Protosses in Starcraft 1 up to this moment. Definitely one of the strongest.
A lot of people wanted to see him face off against Flash. And he's a little bit shy about that. He's saying not sure he can play that well, which is, I think, completely understandable.
No one wants to play Flash.
No one wants to play against Flash. Now we're going over to, are we going to Bisu now? Or are we going to hop over to the other side? I think, yeah, we're going to go to Bisu now. So, Bisu, if you followed StarCraft 1 at all, needs a little introduction, but for the unaffiliated, for the unacquainted, this guy really revolutionized the way that we understand Protoss, and that stayed here to this day, and he is easily still one of the best Protoss players now. He was also doing his compulsory military service in Korea, which takes a little bit under 2 years, and just came back. So this is really exciting to see him here now. He's been streaming a lot. He looks incredibly strong. And I have to imagine he'll be able to play like that here on the stage now.
Yeah, he's in quite good shape once again here, and definitely is the best Protoss that there has ever been, and the most important Protoss that there has ever been.
Yeah, he really showed how to tech after fast expanding with Protoss and make it work in PvZ. PvT as well, he really showed a very clean macro tech and knows how to match Terrans who sometimes turtle very heavily, and he knows how to exploit that and really take advantage of the map. I mean, this guy's a phenomenal player.
Yeah, and he's someone, I've mentioned this several times over the years, but I will again here.
Please.
Is that, you know, back in 2008, 2009, 2010, I got to go to a lot of the qualifiers for MSL, OSL, all sorts of stuff like that, and stand behind, watch all the players play. I've gone to all the team houses and stuff back then, and there was never a player that I perceived to be as quick as Bisu. Just watching behind him, between the speed of his screen switches and the speed of his movements, I'm a player that dedicates my life to the game, and it was hard to understand what he was doing because he was so quick and so, like, for me, standing behind players, he's the most impressive I've ever stood behind.
Yeah, you can watch him stream on Africa TV as well, and you'll see there his not just speed, I'd say, but precision.
Yeah.
For instance, I would say he has the best Zealot Probe Micro I have ever seen with anybody.
You'd probably be right about that.
Okay, we're hopping back over here now to Flash.
The GOAT.
The GOAT. This guy.
The noise his opponents make.
That's right.
Because they're goats and he's a
stepping on their
dragon.
throats.
Yeah.
Flash, of course.
Yeah, just 10 single championships. He's won everything as many times as he cares to.
He's been ridiculously dominant in the modern era. Despite all the new play, new maps, new techniques that have been mastered, he seems to show that his T.E.N can bend the game into a pretzel if he wills it. Also incredibly accomplished with different races. Seems to have a full grasp of all the matchups. And we basically put him a notch, maybe 2 or 3 notches ahead of all the other pros that are here today. That's not to take away from those pros, as they are all so accomplished. More accomplished than you can get for almost any other pro gamer in any other game, or the people on this stage. But Flash has just done something that we never really expected to be possible.
He always has the highest win rate in every matchup. Like you said, he can play every single race at the top level. He's had multiple races at the top of the ladder at the same time. He's beaten everyone with macro play in all the matchups. Yeah, he's so good that just him existing screws up every interview for every league, because you can't ask players if they think they're going to win tournaments anymore if he's in them, and you can't ask them if they think they're the best. There's like this whole range of questions where they always have to parrot about how, well, I mean, Flash is just way better than me. Like literally, even the second best player in the world will say that. They're like, no, I can't do it.
It's important to note that this isn't, the position he's in is not one that necessarily has to exist. You know, when we say who's the best, and if you add up all the numbers, you will get a best player, right? Unless there's maybe 2 or 3 guys that are just tied.
Sure.
It's important to emphasize that he is so disproportionately more successful in a game that is the most storied esport of all time, that it really is something else. There's nothing like this in other games.
Yeah.
And that's incredible, because this is a 22-year story so far.
Yeah, he's enlightened basically to a different level. He actually understands the game at a different level from everyone else.
Yes.
It's the way to explain this. And maybe other games will get players like him at one time.
And if he ever loses a game, it is an upset.
Yeah, basically.
And we'll see if this continues. If he continues to dominate like this, I imagine he probably will, but you never know.
He's retired from tournaments from now.
For now. That's right. He's had, I think, some wrist problems.
Yeah, he just plays occasional show matches like this, stuff like this. He still streams and stuff, but...
And so we're going over to Reach now. Now, Reach was one of the OGs. I think he might be the most, the man toss. This guy exemplified how Protoss can simply macro. The early days of Starcraft, it was more of a tactical one. And don't take this the wrong way, because it's still a very tactical game, but it was a lot more of people on one base attacking. Maybe the Zerg gets a second base, but it was more of getting a few units right away. And then there was a bit of a fencing match with those units against the opposing side. Reach was one of the first players that showed us to just expand and to worry about more is better than having the best unit control. And he did that. He's a great player, has a great strategic mind. He became a League of Legends coach, I want to say for something like 7 years, or maybe 4. I actually don't know when he stopped.
It was a while, yeah.
I know when he started. I don't know when he stopped, because I don't keep up as much with League of Legends. Please.
Let me mention that I think that a good way to put this is he's the most important Protoss for the years in between Garimto and Bisu.
Yes.
I think that I've never thought of it like that, but it just popped into my mind.
Stork and Nalra were in there.
Yeah, I mean, those were important players, but this guy like filled this gap where there were almost no Protosses that could do anything. In fact, there's like a Star League that he's the only Protoss that made it into in that time. And he's just like a god mode of macro, even very late in his career. People ask me a lot of times what my favorite match ever was in StarCraft 1, and I always answer it was an OSL where in the round of 4 he played I Love Uv and brought I Love Uv, who literally was making everyone think that T.E.N needed to be patched because it was too strong under him. That's what people were thinking at that time, and then Reach brought him to the limit, and that was like towards the end of Reach's. You know, that was when that was late in his career. So really pushing the best players to the limit very late.
Got Go Rush over here, another incredible player, around the same era here as Reach. We're going. It's funny how we've done this. Is we've gone from the players that might have been the weakest and had 2 totally different paths, Sue and Hoja, and then we've gone from the dominant Protosses. Now we then of course the 2 top tier players I think on each team. Fair to say, Bisu and Flash. Now we're going to the old school, which is Reach and Go Rush here. Go Rush is a very accomplished commentator. He's actually a guy we've had the chance to sit down and have dinner with or drinks with a couple times. Very nice guy, very passionate.
He's a great guy.
Yeah,
he is just a sweet man.
Yeah,
and he's commentated so many games at this point.
Yeah, and I think he was even making some content when we first came down here, doing some filming. But he's an excellent commentator, and it's important to note, and we're not just saying that because we're commentators, but these guys really paved the way for people like us and for esports broadcasting in general. You get players that were very good, and they came out and were very articulate and had a very good grasp of the game. And they were able to explain to the masses what's really going on, that there is a lot to this. And here's why you should watch, and here's why you should be excited.
Yeah. Another important thing about him is that he was one of the only successful SKT Zergs ever. SKT was always famous for having a famously weak line of Zergs, but always very strong Protoss and Terran players. The Zergs were always kind of lacking on their team. That includes Sue. Sue was really not delivering, and StarCraft 2 is really where he blossomed. But Go Rush, definitely an exception there. He's always very strong.
One thing to mention, because we get asked this quite a bit, but of course these guys were all on teams, they all live together, and now teams are less common here in South Korea, and why is that? Well, remember, this game is so old that at the time you really did need to play with a bunch of other players on LAN in a house. You had to be living together because the latency was so much better on LAN, and you were of course competing on LAN. There was no point in simply grinding on BattleNet, especially before they had
there was no real ladder.
There was no real ladder, but also they didn't. What is it?
Chaos Launcher.
Chaos Launcher. But what is that technology called? The thing that
peer-to-peer or something?
Peer-to-peer or something like that. You could have with matches online. So these guys all live together. A lot of them are free agents now. A lot of them make money streaming and doing show matches there. And of course,
there's no StarCraft 1 team anymore. None. Zero.
Correct. Unless it's something for fun.
Yes.
There's no team house of people together, and it's not necessary. I think occasionally people will talk about the game not being as big or as important because the teams aren't there. The teams were necessary, especially at the time, because of where internet technology and connectivity was inside of games.
Yeah, that's all definitely true.
But also everybody's older and they don't want to live together. I mean, you get to a certain age and you don't want to live with a bunch of dudes.
Yeah, and I think that if team houses did come back, it would push the skill further forward more quickly, like certain aspects of the skill, but this weird open system we have now where everyone streams, all the best minds stream, I think pushes the strategic metagame forward more quickly.
I would agree, because now everybody has access to top tier games, where before, in a way, these games were sequestered from the general audience. It was kept very private, and then you'd see these strategies exhibited on the big stage, where now we can actually all follow and all learn and all unpack this together.
Strategically, everyone in the world is so much stronger now than they used to be.
Yes. Everybody's got a deeper understanding, and with that collective knowledge that we all share, we can all build upon that. We all stand on the shoulders of giants here, and that couldn't be more true in StarCraft here. And streaming, not just in StarCraft, but in esports and in gaming in general, that really revolutionized the game. It looks like we're ready to start this. We're gonna have a short break. When we come back, the show match will start. Do tell your friends to join us for the SKT KT show match here. We'll see you guys in a little bit.